Alright guys, what's up? Hail Caesar fans, Victorum gaming fans, we are back. We got another faction review for you guys today. We're going to take a look at the late Achaemenid Persians, which is, we've reviewed the early ones before. Go check that video out. But this is the later one, so the roughly 4th century BC period. So if you want an army to fight the Macedonians and Alexander, basically, this is what you're looking at. So things like Artaxerxes III, Darius III, Granicus, Issus, Gaugamela, all that stuff with Alexander. This is that list, and there's going to be some slight variations from the early list. So for example, here just something to point out in the description, basically talking about the spara for the infantry. So there's a rule there basically because it could be an improvised barrier, so represented by allowing the -1 to hit by a ranged fire from the front in the same way as formations of heavy infantry, even though they're not necessarily heavy infantry. And there's no point cost for that, and there's basically some, it's almost like a sort of rough house rule, but you could basically include that if you want or not for like no point cost. That being said, let's take a look at how this army is built. So cavalry can be up to half, which is again really sweet. Infantry does have to be a quarter. So this is, you could go all in infantry, but really there's some sweet cavalry and stuff going on here, so definitely worth looking at. But a very solid and diverse list, almost a combined arms list here, so and that's going to be pretty deadly. So what else here? Heavy scythe chariots up to 3 total. It doesn't say units, just 3 chariots total. Divisions as normal there. Although there's some interesting restrictions. So must contain at least 4 units excluding skirmishers led by a commander. However, if mercenary Greeks are included, they have to form their own Greek divisions led by a Greek commander. But they could include skirmishers as noted below. And then skirmishers can be up to 50% of an infantry as well there. So it's kind of typical there. So let's jump in and see what this list actually brings us here. So we start off with some guard medium infantry with spears. And again, typically, unless you're bringing in the Greeks, mercenaries for some heavy infantry action, this is about as good as it gets. And it's not to say that they're bad. It's just obviously some of the heavy infantry units out there can do some things that the medium and light certainly can't. But you do get access to this in quantity. So pretty typical stats there: short range ability, some solid morale as normal, decent points. But as you'll note, these guys, this list has a lot of access to some really solid special rules. So stubborn, and then the Spara Bara notes up above. And then if we wanted to give them basically spears and bows, we could go that route too. So again, you bring in the long range option, so you have pretty damn solid medium infantry in quantity with special rules and the ability to basically act as very solid ranged as well for 4 more points. And they get marksmen when they do that, so that's well worth it for those 4 points of upgrade there, in my opinion. So, and again, the fact that you just get that in quantity as kind of like a core part of your infantry is just really nasty. You can definitely soften up some of those other units to where your medium infantry will be more have more parity with potential heavy infantry, and certainly these that range should chew up similar light and medium infantry or other things like that. Then you can also get levy medium infantry with spears up to only 1 unit there, fairly cheap, same stats but just cheap because they're levy. And you can also go the bow route there too, which again, same deal, just a little bit cheaper overall. So if you can manage that, you can get lots of ranged in quantity again, while still being able to do a little bit of work in close combat. But again, just note the levy, not necessarily restrictions, but just what you can really expect out of levies and so on. Moving on, speaking of levies, more medium infantry, but this specifically with bows, and you can also sort of downgrade them into militia. But basically, even though they're listed as medium infantry, think of this as more like a light infantry unit. But again, slightly cheaper overall, more focused on the ranged. And then if you want to just go dirt cheap and make a militia too, but again, be aware of what those downgrades will do your saving points. But obviously things become a little bit more fragile. And then we bounce out of that stuff and into the Greek mercs. So again, very solid heavy infantry. The mercs here, 35 points is definitely going to be expensive, but again, you get that heavy infantry stat line, and they're elite and phalanx as well. So again, this army can do special rules in crazy quantities. So so you have the quantity, but you can also really back it up with a surprising amount of quality as well. You also get access to peltists, and you could also downgrade them into small units there. So again, just rounding out that skirmisher role, but specifically for the Greeks. Then you have the Persian equivalent here, skirmishers with javelins as small units. And again, fairly cheap. You could go the sling route if you wanted, but again, up to half of those. Again, if you want just more cheap small units with a little bit of long-range firepower. And you could also switch those over to bows, and again, up to half there as well. Just typical points variations there. Although I think most other ones are just 1 point for like a bow upgrade, similar style here. The Persians are paying 2 points for it. But also, if you wanted to just drop that down to levy, you're going to get that savings as well. You do get some light cavalry with the Persians here as well, with javelins as small units, so they get feigned flight, which is cool in quantity again. And you could go a bow route there, so feigned flight and bows, pretty solid, kind of annoying. And again, you could, if you want to get that point savings, downgrade them to levy, but again, you just got to be careful of not getting caught with levy is not going to stand up too long. Then they also have just dedicated horse archers as small units, but here you get Parthian shot. So again, just lots of craziness. And then guard heavy cavalry with spears up to 1 unit. So again, might as well take it just because it's just the 1 unit, but again, a very elite unit, so like a mobile division. This would be really good. You get that really solid 9 on the clash. It does drop off significantly though, but these guys can stay in combat a little while. 4 up, morale's pretty solid, of course, and they can do some work, especially when combined right with the various other cavalry and so on. So, and then we do have a little bit more, but wait, there's more. So then we get medium cavalry with various flavors here. So no special rules, although again, we could also downgrade them to levy. So again, you just have so many options to consider and ways to throw things at people with the Persians. But anyway, so the medium cavalry start off with spears, and again, solid medium cavalry stat line. You could upgrade up to half of them to just heavy cavalry, which they're not going to be any special rules or anything for them, but just, hey, you want to upgrade into heavy cavalry, you have heavy cavalry on demand. You could again upgrade that cavalry 1 unit to spears and bows if you want even a little bit of long range shooting with that heavy cavalry unit. Just again, not necessarily weird stuff, but just things outside the norm to throw at people. And then those heavy chariots, again, they're just good on the clash, but scythes, chariots, and fairly cheap for what they do because it's really just literally 3 chariots. Leadership is going to be a bit rough to manage all this craziness. Leadership 7, we've talked about that extensively in all our reviews. Leadership 7 is going to be a tough one, so you're going to have to be really a little bit more conservative on your orders. And then the commanders, though, let's see, extra to upgrade commanders other than the general to leadership 8 up to half. Which is really interesting. So you could upgrade some of your commanders to be better, but that's going to run you a point cost, actually. Basically 10 points a pop there, but the general is actually stuck at 7, which is a little disappointing. And again, you're going to have to just be very careful with your orders to get function out of your army. So all those awesome special rules and diversity will come at a price, and that's basically the leadership of your army. So you want to be very, very careful there. Don't do anything to get your general potentially killed if you're playing with those rules as well. So I wouldn't really commit any of my commanders. And it's interesting here, so none of the Greeks get upgraded into like elite status with like leadership 9. And it's a little disappointing though, because it would have been nice if they would have included like Darius or something as a special character with maybe like the potential access to like 8 as a leadership. Certainly he shouldn't be 9 like Alexander. But anyway, yeah, that's the late Achaemenid Persian. So a really interesting list. Again, it could be hugely like strong and tough to deal with, but again, whereas most armies generally, have that leadership 8 across the board with sometimes access to 9, you're going to have that Achilles heel too. So again, depending on your point level you're playing at, you do want to save some points to probably upgrade at least half of your commanders to 8, and make sure that like the parts of your army that are going to need to do the most work and like kind of have more guarantees of doing stuff, you want that leadership 8 there. And then you're just going to have to be conservative with what your general's doing to manage his responsibilities there too. So if you can manage all these things and really can meld this stuff together, then you will do pretty well. But again, you get a little too aggressive with your orders, things get out of place, out of whack. You start rolling poorly for your orders, you're going to just have huge chunks of your army sitting doing not much. So, hope you guys enjoyed our little look here at the late Achaemenid Persians. Drop us a like, a comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think of them. How you fielded them? What kind of opponents and how have you been doing? And then, like I said, subscribe if you haven't already. Stay tuned for more Hail Caesar content. We're going to be taking a look at the Macedonians appropriately next, as you can probably see from the picture here. So again, we're following kind of the timeline, but let us know what you think, and we'll be back for more.